We're back in the headlines today. The NBA announcing what's next for Joshua Primo.
Shown the door after accusations of indecent exposure to a team psychologist. Primo underwent evaluation with specialists who consult with the Clippers.
When I woke up this morning, this was the last thing I thought I'd bring you guys an update on. But here we are, and it's a wild story that we haven't covered for almost a year. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow, especially because the contents of this video may cause it to get demonetized. And now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. My friends, we had a
legendary weekend on Prize Picks.
Your boy personally made $700, and I only missed 2 out of 11 of my picks. And you guys hit me up in the DMs and let me know about it. We're about to ramp it up for this week. Remember, you get a $100 deposit match on Prize Picks when you use my promo code microphone, and I post my picks onto my Instagram story at the Flight Mike for free each and every day that there's a football game. And thank you, Prize Picks, for the sponsor. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The San Antonio Spurs finally lucked into the #1 overall pick of the 2023 NBA draft, where they were able to select the greatest NBA prospect since LeBron James in Victor Wembanyama. And by the way, he's looking like a freak. If you guys haven't seen our last Wemby video on him, highly recommend you check that out or the short. But they were building up to this moment for quite some time, and a huge part of that rebuild was none other than their 12th overall pick in the 2021 NBA draft, where they selected Josh Primo, quite literally a pick before Chris Duarte, Ty Jones, and Alperen Sengun. Josh Primo was clearly supposed to be a huge part of the San Antonio Spurs' future. They were very much invested in his development, and everything was going well until Josh Primo's second year in the NBA, where a former Spurs psychologist, a woman that's very respected, by the way, Hillary Cawthon, sued the San Antonio Spurs and Josh Primo and filed a criminal complaint over alleged incidents involving indecent exposure by Primo, alleging that Primo exposed himself 9 times to her beginning in December of 2021, and the franchise failed to act. If you remember, Josh Primo would get released by the San Antonio Spurs, and he was accused of having multiple alleged instances of exposing himself to women. Now, this is very shocking because anytime an NBA player is drafted in the lottery, you're at least going to give him 4 years tops. I mean, play out your rookie contract before you make a decision on him. Cutting a lottery pick this early is very rare in the NBA, and we would eventually find out what happened as Dr. Cawthon would give her statement and issue a lawsuit.
I'm disheartened to be standing here sharing the events of my story, but I'm also very humbled and honored to have the place to share words that others may have not been able to. I'm a clinical sports psychologist. I'm a mother of 4 wonderful daughters, and I am a victim. The organization I worked for has failed me. I spoke up, I asked for help, I gave options. My voice and my feelings, my actionable items were silenced. Due to their inaction and protection of their assets, other individuals were impacted. And for that, I am truly sorry. It took the Spurs 10 months to do the right thing. That's too long.
The lawsuit alleged that Cawthon informed the Spurs organization of Primo's indecent exposures in January of 2022, and her repeated reports went ignored. So pretty much, for lack of a better way of saying it, this is what she's accusing Josh Primo of doing. And ironically, the person that was involved in this lawsuit is an individual that we're very familiar with, Tony Busby, the individual that represented all the alleged victims in the Deshaun Watson case, once again was involved in this particular case and filed a lawsuit against Primo and the Spurs, claiming that Hillary Cawthon lost her dream job because the Spurs ignored her repeated reports of indecent exposure on the part of Primo. On Josh Primo's side, his defense was it wasn't intentional. If anything was visible at any time, it was strictly a wardrobe malfunction resulting from laying down on a couch in basketball shorts. My man really just indirectly flexed that he was so hung that his Johnson just slipped out of his shorts. That's insane given the situation. Greg Popovich would address the situation, saying that that this was in the hands of the lawyers, and he can't speak on more details and asked fans to trust the organization, and obviously that they took the accusation very seriously. I will say is that I will stand by the statement that came out yesterday by the Spurs organization. I would only add that anybody that has observed the Spurs over a very long period of time knows that an accusation like this would be taken very seriously. Without any doubt whatsoever, the Spurs organization would be on top of it. I'm confident that the men and women on the managerial staff that dealt and are dealing with this did so purposefully and promptly and did it with the utmost care for everyone concerned. Josh Primo's attorney would say that Josh Primo is a 19-year-old NBA player who has suffered a lifetime of trauma and challenges. He is now being victimized by his former team-appointed sports psychologist who's playing to ugly stereotypes and racially charged fears for her own financial benefit. In an act of betrayal against her young client, Dr. Cawthon, who is 40 years old, falsely claims that Josh Primo exposed himself to her during the course of her numerous therapy sessions. Dr. Cawthon's allegations are either a complete fabrication, a gross embellishment, or utter fantasy. Josh Primo never intentionally exposed himself to her or anyone else and was not even aware that his private parts were visible outside of his workout shorts. Again, just obviously we're taking this seriously. It's just such an interesting claim to make.
Your Honor, my client is so hung that he had no idea that his Johnson was peeping out of his basketball shorts.
What makes the allegations even less credible is that Dr. Cawthon never informed her patient of the purported exposure. Dr. Cawthon was Mr. Primo's mental health support provider and confidant, a therapist who Mr. Primo trusted. She is much older than Mr. Primo, with many years of experience as a sports psychologist. It is baffling why she did not bother to tell her patient that his private parts were visible underneath his shorts. Josh Primo is at the beginning of a promising career and has been devastated by these false allegations and released by the Spurs. He is in the process of seeking treatment to deal with the trauma inflicted on him by Dr. Cawthon's misleading allegations, in addition to the previous trauma he suffered as a child. He looks forward to clearing his name and to moving forward with his NBA career. So after this, we wouldn't hear much from Josh Primo. You would see Josh Primo in periodic scrimmages with additional players that are in the NBA, but you wouldn't see Josh Primo get signed for the remainder of the season. Until now. For those of you guys that didn't know, the Los Angeles Clippers are really desperate for a brand new guard. At first, they were in the James Harden sweepstakes, and now you're hearing that they might be interested in Drew Holiday, but Adrian Wojnarowski said this about their chances of getting Drew Holiday.
I don't know if the Clippers can be the highest bidder in this process. Someone's going to come in here and probably give up a little more draft capital and in their minds commit financially longer.
And with all that being said, it's clear that the Los Angeles Clippers need to find a guard. They could potentially get Drew Holiday, but as you saw from what Woj said, it's a bit of a long shot. And I think Drew Holiday's story is a huge rabbit hole that deserves its own separate video. If you guys are interested in that, let me know in the comment section down below and we'll bring that to you next. But earlier today, we got a very interesting report from Adrian Wojnarowski. It came out of nowhere. Honestly, it's something that we didn't expect. The NBA is suspending free agent guard Josh Primo for 4 games for what it will term as conduct detrimental, sources tell ESPN. Spurs waived Primo a year ago. I really don't blame them for waiving Josh Primo a year ago. I mean, I can imagine Greg Popovich pulling up to the Spurs front office saying,
"We can't have these distractions. We have a year to tank.
I can't be focused on losing games if I have to be focused on one of our young players running around showing his Johnson to women, or his Johnson accidentally slipping out of his shorts, whichever you believe." Following this, Woj would remind us Primo allegedly exposed himself to women in multiple instances. Sources told ESPN Primo would serve the suspension upon signing with a new team. Primo, 20, was the 12th pick in the 2021 NBA draft. And then he would finish off his morning series of tweets by saying the NBA probe found Primo engaged in inappropriate and offensive behavior by exposing himself to women. Primo maintains that his conduct was not intentional, and the league did not find evidence that he engaged in any or other misconduct apart from these brief exposures. Following that, there's a bit of a lull. 5 hours later, we found out why Adrian Wojnarowski tweeted out all that info. According to Adrian Wojnarowski, ESPN sources, free agent guard Josh Primo is planning to sign a 2-way contract with the Los Angeles Clippers. Since his release from the Spurs in October, Primo has been engaged in ongoing therapy, which will continue in LA. The situation is just so bizarre because on one hand, I thought Josh Primo wasn't going to get another chance, primarily because he didn't really show how good he was in the NBA. Typically, you could do something very controversial off the basketball court if you're good enough, and the NBA will forgive you. A good example is Miles Bridges. Miles Bridges pleaded no contest to the allegations of his domestic violence, yet he's still playing for the Charlotte Hornets. So I felt like Josh Primo's chances of getting back were very slim, and given the fact that we're assuming that this was just a misstep or an accident or he was being sabotaged here, assuming that you're taking Josh Primo's side, I'm glad he'll get another chance. Now, Woj would continue saying that Primo underwent evaluation with specialists who consult with the Clippers, and the organization is comfortable giving him this opportunity. The NBA suspended Primo for 4 games Friday after a probe found that he had engaged in inappropriate and offensive behavior by exposing himself to women. So yeah, it looks like Josh Primo is coming back to the NBA, is going to get a brand new chance with a new team with a ton of veteran talent, by the way. Marcus Morris, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Russell Westbrook. Could you imagine if Paul George hosts Josh Primo on his podcast and Josh Primo opens up about this entire experience and what it actually was like? I don't know the odds of that happening, but it definitely would be interesting to see what truly happened behind the scenes. Now look, you guys know I'm not a huge he said, she said person, because at the end of the day, if he truly is a horrible human being, I'm sure he'll have another misstep, and I'm sure at that point he won't have another chance in the NBA. At the same time, Dr. Coffin achieved what she was trying to achieve. Josh Primo isn't by the Spurs anymore. He's in Los Angeles now. So I guess it's a win-win for both sides in the sense that Josh Primo gets another opportunity and Dr. Coffin gets away from him. But I can't really sit here and tell you if what Josh Primo did or is accused of doing is actually true. What I will say is I think Josh Primo's punishment was adequate. I mean, he was away from the NBA for an entire year. I don't know why they were giving him an additional 4 games. It seems like so minor considering the fact that he was sitting out for a whole year. And now that you're suspending him for 4 games, you're reminding everyone like, oh, by the way, he did this horrible thing a year ago. Here's an additional 4 games. I don't know. I feel like it gives room for people to say you didn't punish him enough. I think the fact that he got cut from his original team and had to sign with a new team was already a pretty big punishment. But let me know what you guys think about this situation. Do you think Josh Primo didn't deserve another chance in the NBA? Do you think he should have been cut and gone for good? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.